In the autumn of 1888, something walked the streets of London that the world had never seen before. Not a ghost, not a legend, a man. A man who killed 5 women in less than 3 months, mutilating each one with surgical precision, and then simply vanished. He sent letters to the police mocking them. He carved his name into history. And over 130 years later, despite DNA evidence, despite thousands of suspects, despite one of the most famous investigations in human history, Jack the Ripper has never been identified. This is his story. To understand Jack the Ripper, you first have to understand Whitechapel. In 1888, the East End of London was a place the rest of the city tried to forget. 80,000 people crammed into gas-lit streets barely wide enough for 2 people to pass. Poverty was not just common, it was absolute. Women sold everything they had just to afford a bed for the night. The Metropolitan Police estimated that in October 1888 alone, there were over 1,200 women working as prostitutes in Whitechapel. Not because they wanted to, because they had no other choice. These were the women Jack the Ripper hunted. And in the darkness of those narrow alleyways, with no electric light, no forensic science, and 2 separate police forces that barely spoke to each other, he was almost impossible to catch. Historians have identified 5 victims considered definitively linked to the Ripper. They are known as the Canonical 5. And before we talk about the killer, we need to talk about them. Mary Ann Nichols, age 43, found at 3:40 in the morning on August 31st in a dark street called Bucks Row. Throat cut twice, deep abdominal wounds. The pathologist noted the injuries were inflicted with speed and precision. Annie Chapman, September 8th, found in the backyard of a boarding house on Hanbury Street. Her uterus had been surgically removed. The police surgeon was stunned. This was not random violence, this was knowledge. Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes. September 30th, the same night, 2 women, 45 minutes apart, in 2 different parts of the city. We'll come back to that night. And finally, Mary Jane Kelly. November 9th, the last, the youngest, the most brutally murdered of all, found inside her own room. The scene inside was described by the first officer on the scene as the worst thing he had ever witnessed in his career. These were not statistics. These were women with lives, with histories, with people who loved them, and each one was taken in the same systematic, deliberate way. Now, September 30th, 1888. This is the night the city broke. At roughly 1 a.m., Elizabeth Stride was found in Dutfield's yard, throat cut, but no mutilation. Investigators believe the killer was interrupted. Someone was coming. He ran. But he didn't stop. Less than an hour later, 45 minutes away, Catherine Eddowes was found in Mitre Square. This time, he'd had time. Her face was disfigured. Her kidney had been removed. A piece of her apron was found nearby, with a handwritten message chalked on the wall above it. The message read, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." The Metropolitan Police Commissioner, fearing anti-Semitic riots would erupt at dawn, ordered the message erased before it could even be photographed. Evidence destroyed by the police themselves. That same week, a letter arrived at a news agency signed Jack the Ripper. It referenced the double event. It was gleeful, taunting. Then came another letter with a piece of human kidney preserved in wine. The sender claimed it came from Catherine Eddowes. A doctor who examined it said it was consistent with her age and medical history. London went into a panic the likes of which it had never seen. The investigation into Jack the Ripper was, by almost any measure, a disaster. 2 police forces, The Metropolitan Police and the City of London Police were investigating the same killer with almost no coordination between them. Thousands of letters flooded Scotland Yard claiming to be the Ripper. The real letters, if any were real, were lost in the noise. But one remarkable thing did emerge from this chaos. A police surgeon named Thomas Bond was asked to assess the murders and offer his medical opinion. What he produced was something the world had never seen before: a criminal profile. Bond concluded the killer was a man of physical strength, likely middle-aged, and probably living alone. He suggested the man appeared respectable, able to move through Whitechapel without drawing attention. He believed the killer derived gratification from the act itself. Thomas Bond had just invented criminal profiling, a forensic technique now used by law enforcement agencies worldwide, born in the chaos of the most infamous unsolved case in history. Despite all of this, the Ripper was never caught. After November 1888, the murders stopped. He was never seen again. Over 130 years, more than 100 suspects have been named. Princes, surgeons, artists, barristers. But in 2019, a peer-reviewed study published in the Journal of Forensic Sciences made headlines around the world. A forensic scientist had extracted mitochondrial DNA from a silk shawl, reportedly found near the body of Catherine Eddowes on the night of the double event. The DNA was compared against living descendants of both Eddowes and a man named Aaron Kosminski. Aaron Kosminski, a 23-year-old Polish barber living in Whitechapel, admitted to a mental asylum in 1891, named as the prime suspect by a senior police officer at the time. The DNA, the researchers said, matched. But not everyone is convinced. Critics note the shawl was never officially logged as evidence. Its chain of custody is deeply disputed, and mitochondrial DNA, the type that can survive over a century, could potentially match thousands of people who shared Kosminski's maternal lineage. As of today, the case remains officially unsolved. Aaron Kosminski died in an asylum in 1919. He never confessed. He never denied it. He simply disappeared from history, just like his alleged victim's killer did from the streets of Whitechapel. Jack the Ripper was never found, and perhaps that's what makes him so enduring. Not the horror of what he did, but the silence that followed. The unanswered question that echoes across more than a century. Who was he? If you think Aaron Kosminski is the answer, or if you've got a theory of your own, drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story kept you watching to the end, hit subscribe. Every week, we go deep into the cases that history couldn't close. Next week, we're covering a case far more recent and somehow even more disturbing. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.